In this video, I will be talking about assessing writing. What's so particular about writing? All cultures have a language, but not all of them have a written language. And this is because we don't need formal education to learn to speak a language, but we do need formal training to write it. We need to learn the writing system of a language, and this implies an educational process. What's hard about assessing writing? Subjectivity and inconsistent reliability. Okay, what do I mean by this? For example, let's pretend you are assessing a piece of writing today and you don't like it and you give it a very low grade. And then let's imagine you assess the same piece of writing in a month or in a year and then you do like it and give it a better grade. Sometimes assessing written work may have to do with your state of mind, your likes or dislikes, whether you're tired, hungry, I don't know, and you can be very inconsistent with yourself. So this is quite a challenge for language teachers. Also, according to Brown, every educated child in developed countries learns the rudiments of writing in his or her native language, but very few learn to express themselves clearly with logical, well-developed organization that accomplishes an intended purpose. And yet, we expect second language learners to write coherent essays with artfully chosen rhetorical and discourse devices. And that's very important to remember each time we're teaching writing. There are many people who struggle to write in their native language, and then we have our students who are foreign language learners, and we expect them to write well in a language they're just learning. So we need to remember what we went through when we started to learn to write in English. It was no easy job. In conclusion, assessing writing is no easy job. Among our goals to assess writing, we may focus on handwriting ability, spelling, grammatically correct sentences, paragraph construction, logical development of a main idea. It's also important to consider the genres of writing. They all have their style, format, expectations. For example, we have academic writing, we have papers, reports, essays, compositions, journals, theses, dissertations, and so on. We have job-related writing, messages, letters, emails, memos, reports, announcements, etc. Personal writing, letters, emails, greeting cards, invitations, shopping lists, notes, diaries, posts on web pages, and so on. We can also classify writing into at least four broad types of writing performance. There's imitative writing. For example, you're given a sample introduction, a sample paragraph, or a sample email, and you're supposed to reproduce it, just making minor changes. There's intensive controlled writing. This is a lot similar to a grammar exercise in which you're supposed to use a given structure, or for example, you're practicing on writing topic sentences, concluding sentences. So writing performance is very controlled. There's responsive writing. For example, the students read something, they watch a video, and then they give a response in written form. Finally, there's extensive writing, in which you're supposed to produce a more sophisticated piece of writing. For example, an essay. Okay, what are our strategic options? In the teaching and testing of writing, it is advisable to deal with the nature of a writing task, purpose, and the genre of a given piece of writing, style. These are two very important points because we need to consider the audience, the expectations, and the way in which written communication occurs in a particular genre. Now we're going to look at some types of testing, teaching procedures for assessing writing. We have sentence combining. This is similar to the grammar exercises you may see in a book. So you have two or more separate sentences that are to be combined using a given structure. Yes, sentence expansion. We have parts in a sentence in which we can insert modifiers like adjectives, adverbs, and so on in order to make the sentence more complex. We have sentence reduction. Sometimes students end up writing very wordy sentences, so this kind of practice is also necessary. So uh, they they become more concise when expressing their ideas in written form. We have copying exercises. What you see here is a substitution table. So you have a few choices in each of the cases, and you can produce your own sentence, quote unquote. This is very controlled, but sometimes students do need this kind of input so they can produce a coherent sentence and understand what parts the sentence they are writing should have. There's something called oral close. For example, on the left, students will hear this, and students will read that on the right. So you have the transcript, and it has some gaps, and they have to fill them in. We may have some validity issues here because we are also mixing writing with listening comprehension. We have dictation, and in this case, dictation integrates listening and writing. If you dictate a piece of connected discourse, this may resemble real-life tasks and be used as a teaching testing procedure. And yeah, again, it's important to dictate complete pieces of discourse, not isolated words, because that's not something we usually do in real life. We try to dictate meaningful chunks of information. We have dictocomp or dictogloss. For example, you read a short piece of writing at normal speed 2 or 3 times while your students take notes. Then students work individually, in pairs, and in groups to reconstruct the text as accurately as possible. So, for example, 2 students compare their notes, try to find out whether they missed something that the other student didn't, and then they get in groups and then try to come up with an even better transcript of the piece of writing that was dictated or read aloud, and then the final piece of writing is compared with the original version to see what needs to be corrected. You have editing exercises, and in this kind of exercises, it's important to tell the students what they should be looking for, because when you just tell the students, okay, correct the errors, they will find more errors than there actually are. So tell them, okay, in each sentence there are 2 or 3 errors, and the errors belong to the following categories: punctuation, capitalization, vocabulary, and so on. So we make sure they focus on the task. Otherwise, I will start correcting parts that do not need any kind of correction. Editing exercises can also come in multiple choice format. This is something you might see on the TOEFL or TOEIC tests. So you're supposed to select the fragment of the part of the sentence that contains errors, or identify if no errors are found in the sentence. We can have exercises in which students change a passage, for example, from first to third person singular. In this case, we're focusing mostly on grammar and reference. We have building paragraphs or building sentences from prompts. So you have just a series of fragments or words that need to be combined in order to create a more complex piece of writing, like a paragraph or a sentence. You can have students write from a given outline. So sometimes students have trouble deciding on what to write about or how to structure their ideas, so you can give them an outline, so they build on top of that. You have paragraph construction tasks. We can have students do topic sentence writing, topic development within a paragraph, or developing a main idea and supporting ideas across paragraphs. It's important to allow students to improve the coherence of their written ideas. There's guided writing. We can provide students with a series of questions that should be answered in a piece of writing. Again, this is very controlled, and the piece of writing may end up being very choppy and mechanical because students just focus on answering the questions one by one and do not provide transitions between the ideas. We got picture cues. Any kind of pictures can be used to have students write. They can describe what they see. They can write a response. They can argue about something. In this case, the task has to do with writing a letter to the local newspaper describing the junction and mentioning some of the dangers and causes of actions. For example, you write and complain about something, or you write a letter to the editor of a newspaper. We may also consider summarizing and paraphrasing. But having students summarize, paraphrase text may be an assessment procedure depending on their levels, because summarizing and paraphrasing require practice, and they need to develop the skills and the strategies to summarize and paraphrase. You have response writing. For example, after listening to something, after watching a video, or after reading something, then students write a response. And here we have our references.